And we have discussed science. So now let's turn to Protestantism. The Reformation, which shaped Europe in 16th century and later. Protestantism means the appearance of the new churches. The new churches in new directions in Christianity. From 14th century, Catholic Church was in decline. It happened because of the interferences of the neighboring France into the affairs of church. There were internal conflicts between popes for the power. There were right popes and wrong popes, Roman popes in this Catholic Church. Of course, it couldn't help the development of morality, the development of the strong church. All of this was accompanied with the moral decline among clergy. Catholic Church was in corruption. Catholic Church was compromised by the practice of selling indulgences. Indulgency was just a paper which you could buy from the church, and using this paper, and because of this paper, you could get salvation in other life. So you could buy salvation from the church, and not all people could accept this. How can I buy salvation for my money by paying money? That was the very strange question, because people used to get salvation doing good things. But now, as church said, you couldn't do bad things, but if you buy this indulgency, so then you could be rescued and you could be in heaven's afterlife. It was the paradox. It was not acceptable for many people, this idea of indulgences. There was corruption in the church. The offices of cardinals and bishops were sold, were exchanged for some services, and so on. There was sin in the church. In eyes of just simple people, Martin Luther was just a priest, one of the many Catholic priests. And he was very discontent with what was happening in the church. And he just tried to reform church by giving some advices and by publishing some new rules, some new principles. And in 1517, in Germany, he published 95 theses about the problems existing within Catholic Church. That was the protest, and Catholic Church at once excommunicated him, but Martin Luther was not afraid of what was happening, and he really, by his deeds, he started new church, and this church was known now Protestant church, the Church of Lutherans, the followers of Luther. You see the differences between these two churches, between your church and old Catholic Church. In Protestant church, everyone could read Bible. That wasn't privilege anymore. Anyone now could take Bible, read it, and interpret it in his or her own way. All services, holy services, now had to be held in native language, not in Latin as it was before, but in German language or in French language or in English language. depending on the place where you are. The spread of Lutheranism in Germany provoked even the large war when peasants under the banners of under the flags of Protestantism, they revolted against their landlords, and this peasant war was really very large, indeed, in Germany in the first half of 16th century. And you see that to enable this function, this option, when everyone can read the books, one needed printing, of course. And Bible was disseminated in printing copies in the masses. Another man who contributed to Protestantism was John Calvin. John Calvin was much more radical than Luther. And you see that he gained many followers over the Europe. There were his followers in Switzerland, in Netherlands, in France, in England. Though they had different names, but they followed the same doctrine. They followed the same religion of Calvinism. Calvinists taught about the idea of predestination. They said that every man or every human was sinful or not sinful already before his or her birth. So his or her fate was predestined by God. That means that society consisted of two groups of people. One of them were elected by God, and another group was with the people who were, from the very beginning of the times, were not elected by God for the eternal life. In general, all Protestant confessions, they were for the cheaper church, for the cheaper services. Henry VIII in England introduced, by his will, introduced Protestant church in England. It was his protest against the absence of desire of the Pope to agree his divorce with one wife. But he wanted to change the wives, and he didn't want to recognize the authority of Pope in this question. And as a response to the decision of Roman Pope who didn't want to see him divorced, Henry VIII proclaimed his separation from the Roman Church and proclaimed the creation of the new church, where he was the head, not Roman Pope. So, in the early 16th century, Henry VIII initiated English Protestantism. He initiated Anglican Church, with church which didn't recognize authority of Roman Pope, but recognized the authority of Queen or King of England. And in the course of time, this church really radicalized and became more native, became the church with the services in English language and with a bit different dogmas, different from Catholic religion dogmas. Okay, there were problems for Catholicism in Europe, and Roman Pope, together with his group of cardinals and bishops, decided to change the situation. In the mid-16th century, Catholic Church initiated Reformation, or initiated counter-Reformation. The Catholic clergy, people tried to reform church from inside. They tried to remove corruption. They tried to increase discipline in church. They gave more rights to Holy Inquisition, which really persecuted those people who were disagree with the Catholic line. And they created the Order of Jesus, Order of Jesuits. They were the fanatics of Catholic Church. They were responsible for the espionage, for the repressions against the and they were responsible for the indoctrination of the masses through schools and collegiums. So they worked with youth. They worked with young people to populate the Catholicism among them. They were agents of Roman Pope in masses, among people. So you see, the effects of counter-reformation, the creation of the new bodies and bodies of Jesuits, and increase of the power of Inquisition. In this way, Catholic Church succeeded or managed to keep its positions in several countries, especially in the countries of the southern Europe, in France, in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy. But it was too late for them, too late for Catholics, because the northern Europe was already predominantly Protestant Europe, the northern one. I mean, Sweden, Danish, Netherlands, English, so on.